Hello there and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Craig Telfer and right now I am joined by someone who looks like a cross between a Victorian chimney sweep and a memory. It's Fraser Clarke.
That's one of the better intros that I think I've had. I don't know how to take it, but I'll take it as a compliment. I take everything as a compliment.
Fraser, I've got a large database of intros for you, and you and I don't podcast that frequently, so I think I've got perhaps the next 5 or 6 years sorted. So that's something for you to look out for every time we are on. I am very much looking forward to spend the next hour or so hanging out with you because Fraser and I are going to be delivering a patented 3-game podcast. It is our intellectual property. Do keep your hands to yourself. We'll be looking at one game from the Championship, another game from League One, and a third and final fixture from League Two. We are at the business end of the season, and there is plenty for us to get through. Before we get started, Fraser, everything okay?
Yes, broadly yes, with the exception of my football club's future being thrown into jeopardy again.
You know something, we might as well talk that. I'd planned that as a bonus for when we touch on League One, but we might as well discuss it just now. The news broke around lunchtime that Dumbarton were coming out of administration, which is fantastic news for the club. However, it's a little bit murkier than that, and I hope you can explain why a lot of the Suns fans in Pine Bovril are a little bit worried about what the future holds for the club. What is the lie of the land at the Rock at the moment?
So on the basis that I don't want anybody to get any, Craig Fowler actually, to get anything legal through the post, I would point fans in the direction of the Sun Sorrow thread on Pine Bovril if you want the sort of unfiltered version of what may or may not be going on. Externally, what we know is that Dumbarton are set to be bought by a company called Pendragon Group. Now, for those of you who have been following Sun's administration over the last 6 months closely, Pendragon own or hold or held the security over land in the car park at the stadium, which has been earmarked for a housing development for basically my entire lifetime. They held security over that after the previous owners, I think, borrowed against it. So now you've got this guy coming in who held the security over the land. He's relinquished the security. There was litigation ongoing between Quantuma, the administrators, and between this company, Pendragon. They've now ended that litigation because he now looks set to buy us. And I suppose the big question that every Suns fan is asking is, why?
Yes. Why?
I don't know. And I don't think anyone knows. And I'm really, really hoping that by the time this podcast comes out, maybe we'll have heard from Gareth Phillips. Maybe he'll have outlined this vision for the club. Maybe he'll have proved himself to be an honourable man, in the words of Mark Corrigan, going for the Residents Association. I don't know. I know nothing about him. And it's difficult and it's frustrating because I know, and this sounds arrogant and it's not meant in that way, but I know that Suns fans are looking at me and looking at people in and around me as being, what can you tell us here? What do you know about him? All I know is what's in the public domain, that statement that went out from Quantuma and the fact that Pendragon held security over the land at the stadium. That is it. And I suppose the worry or the suspicion after 20 years of the club being owned by people who have had an eye on a property deal is he just looking at it as, I want to buy up the land, I want to build houses? And that's the big question. But at the moment, I don't know. I've never spoken to him. I've never met him. I know that he met with the Suns Trust director this morning. So this is Tuesday that we're recording it. He met with the Suns Trust director this morning, Cam Watson. I don't know how it went. I don't know what he had to say for himself. I suppose the fact he's engaging with the trust at an early stage is a hopeful sign. But beyond that, it's all really just speculation at the moment.
What he needs to do is log into Pine Bovril with an account, engage with fans for about 3 or 4 days, and then just disappear.
And say that he's going to do an interview with the local newspaper where I no longer work, so it doesn't have to be with me, and then call off and then go into hiding.
Yes. What about that guy, the Dubai-based Celtic supporter that's into those like collectible coins? He was talking about bringing together a consortium, buying out the club and delivering full-time football to Dumbarton and bringing through the best youth prospects in the country and selling them on. That sounded viable.
Yeah, that sounded completely viable. I think he said he had interested investors from the Middle East as well. Although, to be honest, with the news that we've had today, maybe it would have been nice to just have some pipe dream about some guy in the Middle East wanting to invest us. At least he was kind of quite upfront and honest, like, yeah, I'm a Celtic fan, but, I want to buy your club. Oh, all right, okay. Well, I mean, I wouldn't personally want to buy Celtic or really any other club apart from my own, but if you've got the backing of these Arab sheikhs, then why not?
I mean, we might as well just have a wee, not a deep dive, but a sort of a dip our toes in with what's going on at Dumbarton. The club have been relegated. That was confirmed following Remind me, who you...
Queen of the South draw, I think, the 0-0 draw with Queen of the South.
That's right. The draw with Queen of the South ultimately confirmed the relegation, something that was only a matter of time. How are you feeling about things at the moment?
It's weird because I don't know how to feel on or off the pitch. On the pitch, you would imagine that team will in all likelihood get dismantled. Like, there's a lot of decent players in there. There's guys who I would imagine will get picked up by clubs in League One and maybe a few further up the pyramid as well. I mean, Stevie Farrell's out of contract in a month's time. So does the new owner want to keep him as the manager? That's going to be the first thing that he has to do. And you know that if he decides to keep him as manager, then that's going to displease a large element of the support. So does he get off on the wrong foot there? By the same token, Stevie Farrell has been manager of Dumbarton for 2 seasons in League 2. We finished 4th and 2nd. He knows the league inside out. I don't think he's ever, as a manager, finished outside the playoffs. From my point of view, and again, this is probably not a widely held sort of belief with Suns fans, but maybe 50-50 or thereabouts, he looks like quite a safe option. Like, you put him in charge next season, you're in League 2, you know he's a good recruiter of players, he knows the division inside out. Yeah, okay, you can maybe bring in a new manager and it might revitalise things, but you'd also bring in a new manager and it all goes horribly wrong. It might be better the devil you know at the moment in terms of the management situation. I think if he gets a new contract, I think that will go down badly with quite a vocal element of the support though.
Yeah.
Especially on the back of this, the proposed takeover situation. So being a Suns fan, it's all up in the air. Like, I mean, next season, normally you can, at this stage in the year, you look at next season. So this time last year, I was looking at it going, right, if we're either going to go up, but it didn't feel like that was particularly likely 12 months ago. We're either going to go up or we should be challenging again for the playoffs next season. Now I look at it and go, next season we could have a completely different manager, a rock bottom budget, no squad, finish bottom of the league, or this guy could invest loads, either back Faz or bring in a new manager, and maybe we'd have a great season. I don't want to dream about it, but you have no idea at all. And you know what it's like. You sit and then speculation fills that void, and you sit and you wonder and you think, and your mind gets carried away, and it will either take you down into a dark place of, our football club's not going to exist in 3 years' time, or you'll be sitting there going, if this guy is worth £200 million, we could conceivably be playing European football in 5 years. You just don't know. So I have no idea how to feel about it.
Yeah, what's the mood of the fans? Just generally about how the season been. Reading the online sentiment, there was obviously there was a fair degree of resignation after the points deduction, and I think it was in around October, November time, the failure to beat Annan Athletic, and that would have been the team you could have caught, you could have reeled them in and overtaken them. What's the general mood around the Rock at the moment from the games you've been to?
I think there is a fair bit of unity there, which has been nice in a way, because you can't deny the efforts that the players are putting in, and they're generally quite a popular bunch of players. I think the Alloa game winning it with a goal in the last minute, and then the Kelty game winning 6-0 for fans who have trekked, and I've been at every game bar Cove away since the turn of the year. I think I've been at every game bar Cove away and Queen of the South at home this season, I think. See the feeling when we scored the winner against Alloa. Incredible, amazing. And it was a different sort of emotion to the usual one, because ultimately it was meaningless. Like, we're finishing bottom of the league and we're going down. But I was stood with two, I hope they don't mind me saying, because they will probably listen, two slightly older Suns fans at that game who, like, it meant a lot to them as well. And these are guys who are, again, not in a bad way, quite critical, quite hard to please, don't get carried away. But they just let themselves get a wee bit carried away when that winner went in. And that was great. Like, being with them for that, two guys that I've almost grown up alongside, like, surrogate, I was going to say grandparents. Surrogate parents. My dad's not there. They'll maybe ask how my dad is, ask how my brother's getting on, that sort of stuff. Just like that extended football family thing. And then being at Kelty and watching us 3-0 up at half time, 6-0 up by full time. Great. But then at the weekend, 2-0 down after half an hour to Cove. And everyone's kind of sitting there like, right, well, we'll just, we'll take the defeat and we'll just go up the road because there's nothing to play for. This is not a good game to watch. We're not getting back into it. So, like, players don't want to be out there. We don't really want to be watching it. And that's the first time this season that's maybe happened.
Yeah, just, you've touched on it there. I was going to ask about it because I think it's perhaps one of Probably one of the most remarkable scorelines we saw all the season. I mean, I'm sure there was loads of people texting you asking what the fuck happened. But the 6-0 win over Kelty Hearts, Sean and I covered it on last week's podcast. We did our best trying to analyse it using the highlights that were available, which was quite difficult. You were there. What was it actually like?
Oh, it was great. It was. It's weird. This season, so I think the most one-sided Dumbarton games I've ever seen in our favour. There's 4 that come to mind. We beat Elgin City 6-0, 2009 when we won the league. That was going on 9, 10, 11. That could have been as many as they wanted. We beat East Fife 6-0 the season that we won the playoffs. That was 6-0 away from home. That, again, could have been as many as we wanted. That was the day Brian Prunty scored 4. So it was a really good Dumbarton team with like Scott Agnew, Kevin Nichol, Alan Lithgow, guys like that. This season, there's been 2 of them. We beat Berwick Rangers 4-0 in the whatever cup it was at the start of the season. I can't even remember. I assume it was the Challenge Cup at the start of the season. Or 4-0 up at half-time. Callum Antell had saved 4 1-on-1s. Michael Ruth had been clean through on goal, just kept missing. And we ended up just finishing 4-0. We just cruised it in the second half. That was the first time I've sat at a game and thought, this could be double figures if we keep going here. The Kelty game was the same. And I left, and this sounds so ungrateful and so stupid because I'm a fan of a team in administration who got relegated. I left really frustrated that we didn't hit 7. And I'd said to one of our photographers, Tommy, I was like, I can't believe we didn't hit 7 or 8 because that game ended with Dumbarton effectively playing 5 up front. So he played like 2 strikers and then 2 wingers and then like a number 10 and just everybody was piling forward. And Tommy was like, I'm really gutted because it would have been me seeing the first of 3 things I've never seen before. He wasn't at the game we beat Kelty in December. So it was the first win against Kelty, the first win at New Central Park because we'd never won there. It was like, I've never seen us hit brackets. That would have been the one thing. So it was incredible. And I suppose, above all else, Joe Mumbongo scoring.
Yes, I was about to ask about that.
Joe Mumbongo scoring from a Calvin Orsay assist and then Calvin Orsay scoring from a Joe Mumbongo assist. Amazing.
Both very well taken goals as well.
Yeah, and that's the goal that Calvin Orsay has been trying to score for us for his 4 seasons as a Dumbarton player. Pick the ball up the halfway line, run forward, commit a few defenders, play a 1-2, stick it in the bottom corner. I've seen him try that every single game of the 130, 140 matches he's played for us. He's had that goal in mind and he finally did it. So when those 2 went in, just like, oh, this could be a day to remember.
Fantastic. That's great. I suppose that in a very challenging season, at least you got to see like just it was a score when you see it coming. I think a lot of people, when they saw that coming in, were just straight onto the phones, straight onto Pie and Bovril, just to try and figure out what on earth happened in that game. So good to hear about it from the horse's mouth and hear about the collector's items for the goals. But we'll move away from Dumbarton, Fraser, and we'll talk about our first featured match from the Championship. And this is Greenock Morton 1, Livingston 2. With Falkirk drawing with Ayr United on Friday night, it was imperative that the Lions picked up the 3 points here if they wanted to keep their title bid alive. And courtesy of a quick-fire first-half goals from Christian Montano and Scott Pittman, they duly did. Finished Morton 1, Livingston 2. Ali Crawford got Morton's consolation. Falkirk still top the table, but Livingston have now closed the gap on them to 6 points. And Morton's season's pretty much over. They're likely to finish in mid-table, too far away from Partick Thistle to challenge for the final playoff place, and too far away from Queen's Park in 9th to really worry about relegation. What's your shoot thoughts on this one, Fraser?
The big thing, so when you said we were doing this game, the big thing that came to my mind is, how on earth did Greenock Morton have the same season every single year? And I thought, is that just in my head? So I went and looked at it and I've actually got it in front of me. It's formatted in a slightly strange way, but they were on 41 points last season, 45 points the season before that, 57 the season before that. That's a 6th place finish, a 5th place finish, and a 5th place finish. Their goal difference in that time has been -9, -3, 10. So it's all been kind of roughly in the same ballpark. And it feels like the same things always happen. They always start off quite slowly. You think, oh, Morton are going to be in a spot of bother. They pick up and go on an unbelievable run. And then you go, oh, Morton are going to be dark horses to make the playoffs.
Yes.
And then it collapses at the end of the season. And it feels like every year follows that. And this year looks no different. And I don't think that should take away from the job that Dougie Emery's done. I think Morton are maybe a club with a lot of problems. We obviously know that Dalrada are pulling out as their kind of major sponsors at the end of the season. This year they've had their number 9 go to prison. Their replacement number 9 do his ACL. And their replacement number 9, a guy who is a very good player, probably not anywhere near fully fit or fully sharp. So considering everything that's been dealt their way and considering that their squad is not the most impressive and not the most depth in it, they're doing a really impressive, or Dougie Emery's doing a really impressive job. but I wonder how much longer he wants to keep doing it. And that was my thoughts after this one.
I think what was his post-match interview? Was it after the Partick Thistle game, after the Falkirk game? If it was last week or the week before, where he was very audibly fed up with the fact that there's a ceiling for Greenock Morton, and that ceiling appears to be 5th place in the championship. That there's something that's preventing them from getting there. Whatever that is, you mentioned they're starting the season slowly, picking up in the middle, falling away at the end, and they've done just that. I think it's 3 consecutive defeats, 1 point in the last 4. The same thing keeps on happening. It must be a wonder for him because Dougie Imrie, on the whole, I think if you take the job he's done at Morton, a team who don't have a lot of money, who, unless, I think the way that the constitution or the charter at the club means, it's very unlikely that anyone can come in and put money into. This was brought in as the fan ownership was brought in to prevent a sort of Douglas Ray situation from happening again. As grateful as a lot of the fans are for his benevolence and charity, you think that somebody would look at the work that he's done and be like, yeah, he's a really good fit. He's able to get a lot out of not very much. But I just feel like, I don't know if it's personality or his character or however he comes across, but it feels like this might be as good as it gets for Dougie Imrie. And I hope that's not the case, and I hope that doesn't come across nastily or wrongly. It just feels like Dougie Imrie's brand is mid-table championship.
And from a Morton point of view, again, there might be the odd season that they're going to finish 4th or 3rd. They're probably possibly even slightly punching above their weight when you look at the size of some of the clubs who are below them in the pyramid or below in the table, certainly likes of Dunfermline, teams like that. Would a Hamilton fan swap to be in Morton's position? Oh yeah, absolutely they would. So it's sometimes, be careful what you wish for, and I don't think any Morton fans will be wanting rid of him. I just wonder if there's an element of Dougie Imrie that goes, right, if I finish 6th next season, that's going to be regression. Probably going to have to burst my balls to get this team to 6th. I'm going to have to do more work, probably with less money. And I just wonder when it becomes a wee bit tiresome for him, or he maybe just wants a fresh challenge. I don't know. You get that vibe off him, but I think that's maybe the sort of guy that he is.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting in Scottish football management, because you would think that, say if you take over a club in League Two, you do well there, you win a championship or you get a promotion, then bigger teams in League One take a look at you and you move up there, and basically the better you do, the more chance that you got to move on, and be that in absolute terms or relative terms. But it just doesn't seem to work like that. And I think that Imrie's a prime example of that, because if you were to think of a club like, I'm just trying to think, let's say Livingston, for instance. Let's say if David Martindale was to walk away for whatever reason, you think Imrie would be a good fit. He was previously a coach there, somebody else who's able to galvanise a group of players, bring them together, as we say there, manage to maximise what he's got at his disposal. But it just doesn't work like that. It feels like Livingston would never go for him. And I don't know why that is. I don't know. I don't know why that is. It's like, for instance, we were talking about this on A View from the Terrace. We're talking about whether or not Simon Murray could be included in the Scotland team for his hard work that he's done with Dundee. And it just doesn't work like that. Just because you're scoring loads of goals at one team, it doesn't automatically get you a call up for the national team. And I think with some clubs, that's perhaps the same in management.
I wonder if Imrie's reputation is maybe part of it, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean it in terms of, if Dougie Imrie's name was Scott Brown, if Dougie Imrie's name was, I don't know, name a Rangers player, say Lee McCulloch, someone like that, take out his Kilmarnock stint, just make him somebody who played 200 games for Rangers, and he was doing the exact same job, he'd had an identical managerial career, I think you can imagine he probably would be touted for bigger jobs. It's just the fact that it's Dougie Imrie. He played for St Mirren and Inverness and Clyde. Mm-hmm. He was a good Premiership player, a real pain as a Premiership player, a really kind of unlikable player on the pitch, but he wasn't a top 6 player. He wasn't even a Hibs or a Hearts player, a guy with 200 games for his belt there. And I just wonder if that counts against him, because can you imagine if Kilmarnock appointed Dougie Imrie? I can't even picture it. I can't imagine it. Whereas, can you imagine if another mid-table or lower mid-table, Ross County appointed Scott Brown? Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, you're right. But it's a funny one, because if you look at Gary Naismith, for instance, his achievements with Stenhousemuir, to win a league title with them and to have them, certainly for 3/4 of the season challenging for the title, you think that would attract the attention of bigger clubs. For instance, Dunfermline Athletic going for Michael Tidser over Naismith. why they thought he would be a better fit. Whether or not Naismith applied for it, I don't know. But when you look at it, you thought that Michael Tidser would have been the more attractive appointment, but yet that Naismith, who's only, probably 10 years older than him, has got far more worth in his CV, yet he wasn't in the running for it. I don't know what the thinking behind it is when it comes to clubs selecting managers, and because of that, I think that Dougie Emery sort of falls through the cracks between some people's thinking when it comes to it. Yeah,
I wonder on the Naismith one, I wonder if his opportunity was Queen of the South, and then that's it. And nobody, and basically, even though that was however many years ago, people were just like, oh, no, that's a block. Because I remember a lot of people saying that. They
finished in ninth place with Lyndon Dykes and Stephen Dobby up front. You what?
Exactly. So I wonder, because Ian Murray was the same. So he did a phenomenal job at Dumbarton, went to St Mirren, was rubbish for 4 or 5 months. I mean, I think he was sacked in early December, so was rubbish for 4 or 5 months. Then was out the game for quite a while.
Yeah.
And when he ended up back in at Airdrie, it was taking a step back, and it was going to an Airdrie team who were in crisis at the time. So
in League One as well, yeah.
In League One. So it's almost like Naismith proved his worth at East Fife, then the first full-time stint scared clubs off, and then it's going to take an awful lot, or a club in crisis that he then builds back up before he gets that opportunity again. And Emery's just not even afforded that opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a shame. And it's a shame that they actually didn't win this match, because they are certainly take something from it, because going by the highlights, and I watched both sets of highlights from Morton and from Livingston, they certainly had the chances to win it. There was Jerome Pryor made a great save from an Ali Crawford free kick. Savable. I think that was, if that had gone in, perhaps question marks over Pryor there, but it was a good save. But I think perhaps worse was Cammy Ballantyne at the back post. It was a really good ball put in, and he just gets caught underneath the ball. He isn't able to properly connect with it and head it in. But on another day, they could have taken something from that match, and it's perhaps just unfortunate they weren't able to do it, and that just means that the season finishes just like every other one. I mean, I watched his post-match interview. I think the game was lost in the first half where they conceded the 2 goals, and he said he feels like the players didn't carry out his instructions, and they think some of the players, and I quote, had the flip-flops on in terms of how they approached it, thinking, well, it's probably too much to try and catch Thistle, let's just see out the end of the season, and ultimately that's going to be the case.
Tell you who definitely had flip-flops on, Gary Woods for that first goal. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I watched it, so on the Livingston highlights, you see it from the main stand, and then you see it from behind the goals. So in the main stand, I thought, all right, okay, he maybe could have done better. Then you see it from behind the goals, and you think, that's the worst thing you could possibly have done in that situation. You either catch it or you parry it out. You don't give it back to the guy who's just missed.
You're not the only person who thought that, because you can tell, I think it's Morgan Boys that's on the line, when the ball's hit the back of the net and the Livingston players at celebrating, he's sort of standing with his arms out like that, as you say, Gary, what the fuck? You could have saved that.
It's the look, when you're stood at a zebra crossing and a car goes through and doesn't stop. That's exactly what it reminded me of, because he's not like, because it ultimately doesn't matter to their season. I think if that was a playoff final, then maybe he'd be losing the rag with him. He's just kind of stood there like, what? Come on, man, like, just catch it.
And he was taken off, Gary Woods. I think he was taken off after about 34 minutes for Ryan Mullen. I'm not entirely sure. So that's Woods has started the last 2 games, a 5-0 defeat to Falkirk, and then the 2-0 win here. And certainly, I'll be honest, I haven't seen the highlights from the Falkirk match. It just, to me, it's like, Falkirk win 5-0. Cool. I can imagine the game. That's not to disparage either team, but Falkirk beating Morton 5-0. I can pretty much close my eyes and imagine exactly how the goals are scored. The wingers get the byline, cut it back, and there's Scott Arfield running in for the middle of the park and finishing. Yeah, great stuff. So I don't know how his performance was there, but it seemed strange to me for Ryan Mullen to be dropped, unless I've perhaps missed something.
I saw some, I don't have them noted down, which is a failing on my behalf, but I saw some pretty startling facts around Morton's sort of goals conceded with Ryan Mullen and with Gary Woods in goals. And it's something like with Mullen, it's something like 1.1 goals a game or thereabouts. And with Woods, it's over 2, bordering on close to 2.5, I think. Like for me, and I know that Mullen's had a few kind of shakier performances, but there's no doubting who the better goalkeeper is there. I mean, Mullen is head and shoulders above him. And I don't know if it was almost just to mark Ryan Mullen's card a wee bit. Just, right, you can't let your standards dip because I'm prepared to replace you. But it felt like it backfired. And okay, maybe he had a hamstring injury. I can't lie. When from everything I read on Pine Bovril, I thought, was he just hooked because he wasn't very good? Like, they just hook him off because they thought, like, he just wasn't very good.
It's something, I mean, the only time that I can think of a goalkeeper being substituted for having a terrible performance, I think he was playing for Ayr United at the time. It was it Barry John Corr? Was that his name? Remember the Celtic goalkeeper, the former Celtic youth player? I'm sure he was hooked at half-time in a match. He was having an absolute nightmare and was taken off at half-time. But other than that, I can't think of a goalkeeper being substituted for a poor performance.
And there'll be people who might remember this. Wes Foderingham, when he played for Swindon.
Yeah, Paolo Di Canio took him off.
League One Oesa.
Yes.
That's the only time I can think of it. And that interview is really, really funny, where he's just like, he thinks he's a big player, but he's playing in League One. You are League One Oesa. Yeah. So that's the only time I can think of it. It's not a commonly done thing, and you have to be an absolute mentalist like Di Canio to do it. Yes,
that's perhaps why we've not seen Paolo Di Canio in management for a while. Why we've no idea where Barry John Corr's whereabouts are either. After that, I'm sure if you're an Ayr United fan and you're listening to this and you were at that match, do get in touch with myself and Fraser, because we'd be really keen to hear more about that. And the second goal as well, I thought Montano I think it was unfortunate for Montano. He had to come off because of a concussion substitute, I think that David Martindale said in his post-match interview. But he had a storming game in this. I mean, the goal, yes, Gary Woods has got a little answer to, but it was certainly finished emphatically. But perhaps even more impressive was his assist for Pittman's goal. I mean, he really it's just great strength. I think it's Cammy Blues that he manages to turns fairly comfortably, to be honest, but turns him and is able to hold him off and then put that low ball in for Pittman to finish. So a really strong performance from Montano there.
Yeah, I think, and certainly from the highlights and from listening to Martindale's post-match, he was the best player on the park. And it sounded like Livingston really lost something when he went off. I mean, that goal, the second goal, that is him, first goal, I love the way he just whacks it, like just whacks it into the net for the first one. But that second goal, like, it shows a lot of poise, a lot of skill to be able to, okay, Cammy Blue's defence is very half-arsed at best, but to get the ball, to shrug him off, to run down, to have that kind of close dribble, and then to pick out your man, just a really good passage of play. And I couldn't believe it, actually. Dale was talking post-match about Scott Pittman's goal drought. Didn't realise that was his first goal since October.
Really? Wow. He said that. He said that's his 50th goal for Livingston, and he touched on that, saying that he's. I really, really, really like listening to David Martindale's post-match interviews. Just when he was talking about having a wee bite at him, a wee nibble, something like that about him. He says like Scott Pittman's just such a low maintenance guy and really easy to work with. Just gets his head down and gets on with it. But I think that was giving him a wee bite, just giving him a wee kick up the backside and let him know, come on, mate, we're needing a wee bit more for you here.
Did you see the bit at the end of that as well where he says, hopefully history is repeating itself a wee bit with wee Pitts coming onto a game for the playoffs at the end of the season? Yes. And he's got this wee grin, this wee glint in his eye. We're like, oh, yeah, I like that, to be fair.
Of course, that's a wee nod to 7 years ago, 2018, when Livingston stormed. I mean, that was barnstorming when they climbed into the playoff final, relegated Partick Thistle. That was proper heavy metal football. They were a good fun side, that Livingston, that Livingston side. Sorry, just my mind drifted off there thinking about the Lithgow, Halkett, and who was the other centre back?
Oh, Declan Gallagher, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was right. That was right. Aye, geez, Lee Miller up front and just Scott Pittman running off him. Great stuff. I mean, I wondered about that. The tone of Martindale's interview there was it an acknowledgement that the league might be beyond them? Because I mean, we're going into this at 6 points left. There's still 9 left to play for. They've got a huge game on Friday night against Ayr United. They need to win that. They need to win that. Otherwise, that they've just left themselves too much to do. But I just wondered by the tone of it, whether or not he kind of knows that it's out of our hands. There's not much we can do.
Yeah, and I think he does. And I think he's been at this long enough to know that now you need to start preparing your players for the playoffs. So if that means people are getting rested, if that means you're maybe taking them off as a precaution, now's probably the time to do it. So I think, let's be honest, Falkirk are not going to throw the league away from this position. You can clip me on this and you can plaster it all over your Livingston fan sites when they do. It doesn't bother me. I don't have skin in the game. I ultimately do not care. But Livingston, I think if you're David Martindale, you've got that experience. He felt that post-match, he just felt like a man who was really comfortable in himself, really assured in himself, and had a plan. Like, I looked at that and I thought, oh, I wasn't sure about Livingston for the playoffs. I thought they might have a chance. But see, listening to that, you've given me a wee bit of belief, just because I feel like you're cooking something up. I feel like you know what you're doing here, and that maybe for the past 3 or 4 weeks you've gone, right, the league is probably gone. Now you know it's 99% gone. You can start working on shapes with an eye in the playoffs. You're not going to be working on stuff going, right, we need to win the last game of the season. Probably doesn't matter anymore. Now you need to be doing it based on the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them start to maybe just like almost gently rotate or gently experiment a wee bit.
I think that depends on how Friday night goes. If they win on Friday, say they win on Friday, Falkirk drop points against Wraith Rovers, it's not completely out with the realms of possibility. Then, say there's 4 points left to play for with the games to go. There is still something at hand there. So you would never want to say, like, it comes to the game against there, Ryan McGowan, Danny Wilson, you guys don't bother getting changed, guys. We're going to try something different. Pitts, you can hang fire here. We're going to try something different. You would hope that that's not the case, and they can still challenge and push Falkirk to the title. But it just feels remote. I think it was the defeat to Dunfermline really feels like the killer. That felt like the one that absolutely killed them, because you beat Falkirk, you turn in a right good performance against Falkirk, you win the SPFL Trust Trophy, you're playing one of the worst sides in the division, and you fuck it up. And then Falkirk barely missed a beat since then. Yeah,
and that was the chance to just ramp the pressure up on Falkirk a wee bit. Especially coming, a week or 2 weeks after beating Falkirk in that game at Almondvale as well. Was they beating them? Yeah, they beat them in that game with a late goal from Shinnie. That was the chance to really turn up the wick on Falkirk. Let's see what you're made of. Let's see how you can do now that we're getting to the crunch time, because it felt like if Livingston had won that game, they've got the experience in their team. Maybe they don't have the pressure that Falkirk had, where everyone's talking about Falkirk. Nobody was talking about boring old Livingston. They were just kind of there in the background. That was their chance, and that was a really, really costly defeat for them, and one that they probably couldn't afford. I mean, realistically, you have to look at the amount of games you're expecting Falkirk to lose, and Falkirk do not drop points unless they are playing Livingston or have they dropped points to Ayr? Yeah, that's
I think they've only, out of those 8 fixtures, won one of them. It might be around insane. I think they've only won one of them. I mean, that game on Friday, it wasn't a fantastic match, but they could have been. I think they could have been a couple of goals up, and then they lose that little bit of concentration at the end, and Ethan Walker's able to score late on. And I think the Falkirk fans would have been quite down after that, despite the fact they do still have the big advantage, because that you win that, then boom, good night Vienna. Good night Felix, that cliche there. Jeez, come up with something else to say. But aye. That's what it is. So Fraser, up next, we mentioned their Friday night match between Livingston and Ayr United at Almondvale. How you calling that one?
I probably fancy Livingston. I think I just trust Livingston a wee bit more when it comes to games to grind out results and to get results in it. And I think Ayr are phenomenal to watch when they're playing in full flow. I just wonder if Livingston will stifle them a wee bit.
And Airdrieonians versus Greenock Morton.
I think Airdrie will win that, and I think they'll probably win it 2-0 or something like that.
Yeah, well, they need
a lot to play for.
Yeah, they're still 5 points adrift from 9th place, so they really need to win that one. Now, we will drop into League One and we will pay tribute to Arbroath. They're the first team in the SPFL to have secured a league title. I think it was only a matter of time before the Lixies confirmed the championship, and they did so in emphatic fashion by demolishing Stennismuir 4-0. A brace from Stan Stanton and a goal from Fraser Taylor and Andy Winter gave Arbroath a well-deserved win, and they will make immediate return to the second tier 12 months after their relegation. Stennismuir, meanwhile, are in third place. But my goodness, they are in bad form. No wins in 6 games, 3 consecutive defeats. And if you want a full analysis of their season so far, you'll have to subscribe to our Patreon, where Fraser and I will be having a big discussion about them and the direction of travel and how they'll be faring going into these final games. Normally, we'd be talking about Stennismuir on every show, but you're going to have to pay us if you want the privilege. So, Craig Fowler, if that doesn't bump up your subscription numbers, I don't know what will. I think because this part's just make it all about Arbroath, really. This is all about them. And what did you make, Fraser, of Arbroath 4, Stennismuir 0?
I think this is the case in point of the best team in the league hitting form at the perfect time.
Yeah,
And just we spoke about Morton and their kind of peaks and troughs. This Arbroath, okay, they started off under McIntyre and it was almost a fresh start when Gold and Hamilton came in.
Mm-hmm.
You've just watched them build gradually, and this felt like maybe not a peak of the season. Maybe it was a peak of the season,
I think
actually.
it was. Given how very one-sided.
Given how good Steny have been, okay, not in great form at the moment, but still a good team and a good team defensively, and they just got dismantled by Arbroath. And you saw the big players putting in big performances, like Fraser Taylor. For my, watching Fraser Taylor, I get that sort of excitement that you get when you think you've discovered something that other people don't know about. You're like, you need to watch this guy.
Yeah.
He's so good. And I liked what I saw of him earlier in the season when we played them up at Gayfield. But do you remember the game, Arbroath's 2-1 win, started last month on our dreadful pitch at the start of March. Horrible game of football, a dreadful game of football actually. And I thought, this is, like, Fraser Taylor's a lovely player to watch, technically so good, skillful, quite small. He's going to get bossed about by us, and he's going to struggle on the pitch because the pitch is an absolute mess. No, he was phenomenal, and he worked harder than anyone. And it sounds like such a daft thing to say because he's so talented, but the fact that he's that talented, that good on the ball, unbelievable deliverer of set pieces, scored a nice goal in this, although I don't know if Darren Jameson maybe could have done a bit better with it. Looked like he maybe might be disappointed, but let's give Taylor credit. It's a great finish. I thought he'd be one of these players who was a luxury, and I'm wrong. He's not. He is a luxury, but he's also a grafter. And then you put him in a team with Sam Stanton, who's somebody, when Dumbarton had him, who is incredibly hardworking, but incredibly good technically, such a good football brain, the vision. I mean, we talk about Sam Stanton so much on this podcast, and we have done over the past couple of seasons. He's a top half championship player. Obviously, he's pissing it in League One. His goals and his timings of the run into the box and all that sort of stuff is just from a different level. So I thought you saw everybody kind of peaking at just the right moments. It was a tremendous performance from Arbroath, and maybe they don't get the credit that they fully deserved. I've seen a few, and I think it's mainly sort of like bitter opposition fans on Pine Bovril saying, the worst champions that we've had in League One for seasons and that sort of stuff.
No.
This Arbroath team have conceded the fewest goals. They've scored the most. They've got the most clean sheets. They've had the league tied up at the start of April. Were they champions? Yeah,
can't really disagree with any of that. I think that, what's been quite funny? I think that a lot of Arbroath's big games this season have actually involved Stennismuir. And what I mean by that is the sort of like landmark games over the course of the season. Now, you want to go back to the first game of the season, the first game of the league season. It was going into it, I was thinking really excited, having won, or certainly we won the championship and then sort of plodded along to the finishing line before we got promoted. It's like, here we are, promoted. That when there's something about games at the start of the season, particularly when you're going into a new division against teams that you haven't played for a while. And Arbroath would have been the same in that regard, having been relegated from the championship. Nice, sunny day, it's warm, it's exciting. And Stennismuir were excellent in that first game of the season. Finished 2-1. Quinn Coulson scored a free kick late on that probably gave the game a bit of gloss that it didn't deserve. But at that point, you're thinking, right, Arbroath, if you're playing against a team that's newly promoted, and that's the calibre of performance you're turning in, this augurs poorly for the rest of the season ahead. And then, of course, it was only a matter of time before Jim McIntyre was dispatched and David Gold and Colin Hamilton came in. Then you come to the game in mid-February between the sides, and that was the 2-0 win for Stennismuir at Oakville View. I can't remember at that point if Steny had closed the gap on the top of the table, but you were looking at that and you're thinking, this is actually a wee bit sticky for Arbroath. They've just lost to their nearest rivals. Steny, once again, very good. Since then, however, they've what's it, 9 games unbeaten, 7 victories. Even the games that were a bit sticky, where they drew with Dumbarton, they drew with Kelty Hearts, where Kelty Hearts scored a last-minute equaliser. I mean, these were tough matches, but you come through it at the other end, and then you wrap things up in the most emphatic way possible, 4-0 against Stennismuir. So it's the landmark games of the season have involved the Warriors, and although they lost 2 of them, well, ultimately they're the better team. That's not trying to make myself feel better or anything like that, because Arbroath are better side. It's just an interesting little wrinkle to how their season has progressed over that period.
I remember So that first game in the season, Dumbarton had played Inverness, and I was sitting in Burger King near the Inverness station after the game, messaging Chris McMillan, who was at the Steny game, said, kind of, how do Arbroath look? And he was just like, they didn't look good. 2-1 flattered them more than it flattered Steny. And the late goal, Steny maybe got a wee bit jittery, like for the final couple of minutes of injury time. But actually, like, Steny were very, very good value for that. He said he was really disappointed by Arbroath, like coming down, keeping a decent chunk of the squad, adding some good players as well over the summer. They just didn't look up to much. And it felt like, oh, right, well, as soon as they get rid of McIntyre, they're going to kick into life. It's just a matter of when they get rid of McIntyre. And obviously that must have came, 2-3 weeks later, because I'm sure Hamilton and Gold's first game was a 2-2 draw with Dumbarton, a game that they were 2-0 up in after about 55 minutes, and Suns turned it around, missed a penalty and came back to 2-2.
That's right, yeah. That's absolutely spot on. I mean, I'm looking at the team that played. So, for instance, the midfield, the team hasn't changed all that drastically over the period. But one of the key things is the midfield at that match against Stennismuir. Craig Slater and Liam Callaghan. Liam Callaghan's on loan at Brecon City. Craig Slater's gone back to Forfar. I think it just shows that was an area of the pitch that badly needed upgraded. You know, like Fraser Taylor eventually coming. I'm sure that was a David Gold signing, was Fraser Taylor. And then getting the option to sign Sam Stanton in January. So that was certainly a part of the pitch that was upgraded. And I think that's something else that we need to talk about as well. When you came into January, if you remember, for such a long period, the league was all bunched up. There was no outstanding team. I think it was only 2/3 of the way into the season when it began to stretch out, and you knew who was going to be relegated and you knew who was going to be challenging for the title. At that point, the Arbroath board, I think they really dug deep and put their hands in their pockets to go and sign Sam Stanton, who immediately like, right, that's shite for everyone else, because Sam Stanton goes in and he's probably one of the best players in the division, to keep Fraser Taylor's loan for the remainder of the season. I think and just as a wee sort of footnote on that, I think where Fraser Taylor is probably a bit maligned is the fact that he's not very big. And Stephen Robinson, the manager at St Mirren, likes big boys. And unfortunately, that's where Fraser Taylor might not get his shot there, which would be absolutely criminal. But I think the fact that Robinson doesn't fancy that allowed him to stay on loan at Arbroath. And then they go and sign Aaron Muirhead on loan from Partick Thistle. So it's all guys that just like made the team better. The worry I would say is going forward, the spine of that team, Muirhead, Stanton, Taylor, Andy Winter, all on loan. So that's a challenge for David Gold and Colin Hamilton next season. I can't imagine Taylor will come back. I think if Taylor doesn't have a future at St Mirren, he'll certainly have a future in full-time football somewhere, because we've just eulogised him and said how great he is. The challenge for them is to maybe beef up the defence, sign a reliable striker, and try and replace Taylor's creativity. And I think that's going to be a difficult thing for them to do. And when they go into that division, they'll probably automatically be, because they're a part-time team in a full-time division, will probably be marked as the favourites to come straight back down.
Yeah, that was something that I'd noted down as well. And it's not to put a dampener on their title celebrations or anything like that, but when you rhyme off the players who are conceivably going back to their parent clubs now, they might be able to sign Muirhead permanently. That doesn't seem beyond the realms of possibility. The other loan players, I don't imagine Andy Winter would be back permanently. I imagine he would have a kind of host of full-time clubs. Now, he might have enjoyed his spell at Arbroath so much that he's quite keen to go back permanently. That's possible. The same could be said for Stanton, but again, a host of full-time clubs you would imagine will be queuing up to sign Sam Stanton. You then look at maybe someone like Keith Watson going up a division at his age with injury problems. Is that someone who is a very, very good League One centre-half, one of the best in the division? Again, how's he going to take that step up? And the striker situation to me feels massive, because if you go into the Championship and your strike force, certainly at the start of the season, is conceivably Callum Gallagher and Gavin Riley, two guys who've had great careers, guys who have done a job in the Championship before, but you'd say are maybe prolific League One or good goal scorers at League One level, maybe not quite as effective that division up.
Yeah.
You start to worry. But what I will say is that Arbroath are going to be, I would look at Arbroath as a player and think, I would want to work under David Gold and Colin Hamilton. You know you're going to get treated well. They probably pay the best money of any part-time club, I'd imagine. Really well run. Playing in front of a big crowd every single week. They should have their pick of the best players dropping or coming up from part-time football, and probably the best players who are dropping out of full-time football and maybe are either looking to go part-time or think, do I go and sign for Queen of the South, or for similar money, do I go part-time at Arbroath? I mean, there's no question in my eyes you'd go to Arbroath.
Yeah, I can't really add anything to that. That's the challenge, I've no doubt. I mean, that's the good thing as well. When you get if you get the division wrapped up early, you know exactly where you're going to be playing next season. And I've no doubt that David Gold will already be speaking to a couple of players. Might be tricky. I suppose that's one of the things that when there's so much still up in there, you've got so many people that don't know where they're going to be playing next season or if they're going to get a contract for next term. But I'm sure Gold's already got the feel. I keep saying David Gold and like that there's not two of them there. Just David Gold's, see every time, David Gold's far more interesting to talk to me. And seeing him being interviewed there with his lager in his hand, supping, taking big sips of it between the interviewer asking him questions in his post-match interview. But he's just the more interesting of the two. There's the thing as well. Well, ever in the Championship are the players themselves like Gold and Hamilton? Are they good enough to play in the Championship anymore? Hamilton hasn't played all season because of an ACL injury. Is he going to retire and manage the club on a full-time basis? Is that something that Gold's perhaps thinking about doing? I mean, he's still young. He's only, 31, 32? So still, I mean, they've both still got, fuel in the tank, if you know what I mean. But these are all questions that'll need to be addressed. But I mean, these are questions that need to be addressed. They don't need to be addressed right now. You know, just you've got 3 games between now and the end of the season, so you can just go out there and just have a laugh. And that's great.
Just put Colin Hamilton and David Gold up front for the last 15 minutes of the last game of the season. Why not?
Quite right. It's it's good. I mean, up next we've got Annan Athletic versus Arbroath.
I mean, you would say that Arbroath should canter that one, but Annan have this weird knack of just picking up results when they need them every so often.
Yeah.
And they've got a hell of a lot to play for, and I think they'll be buoyed by Kelty beating Inverness last week. So I don't know if there's the chance of an upset. Depends how many lagers David Gold and co have had during the week.
And Stennismuir versus Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
I think Inverness will get a result there, and I think Inverness away from home seem to be better than they are at home. So you would maybe fancy Inverness to get a result.
I watched one of the goals that Kelty scored. I think Musa Debaga went off injured and they had a young goalkeeper that came on. Forgive me, I can't quite remember his name, but I had it written down. He went off injured, and it's fair to say that his positioning for Kelty's goal wasn't all that impressive. He left a lot to aim at, and hopefully that Debaga's unavailable on Saturday and this young fella has to start. But then you only score goals if you create chances, and that's something that Stennismuir haven't really done lately. And you know, we're obviously going to talk about them in more detail on the Patreon. Just some lamentable defending for the 4 goals. The first one and the fourth one in particular were just really, really poor. Really, really poor for the Warriors. And that's bad defending isn't something that we've associated with this team for a long time. But you'll hear a lot about that on the Patreon. So do get your money out and give it to us, please. Now, our final game in this podcast, we will drop into League 2 and we will head to Meadowbank, where Edinburgh City defeated Elgin City 2-0. Malik Zaid put the Citizens ahead with a lovely effort midway through the first half, and Innes Lawson put the game beyond doubt midway through the second. That result has virtually ensured Edinburgh will be participating in the promotion playoffs. They're now 8 points ahead of Stirling Albion in 5th place. But Elgin's top 4 chances aren't quite as clear. They're just 2 points ahead of the Beanos. Now, Fraser, I went along to this game on Saturday. I couldn't stomach the prospect of going along to Arbroath and watching someone else have a good time. So feel free to ask me any questions you would like about Edinburgh City 2, Elgin City 0.
I want to start by asking you about Malik Zaid, because I have not seen him play in real life, and he is a player I really want to see play in real life. How good is he?
I'll be honest, this wasn't his best performance, and I think you've got to give Elgin City a lot of credit for that. I think they had done their homework in knowing that if you want to, well, not stop them, but inhibit them, mark Zaid, or just make sure he can't get a run at you. And I think they managed to do that. There was a couple of times where he would get the ball on the turn. That's because that's what he's really good at doing. He reminds me, remember when Jack Wilshere broke through at Arsenal? And one of the things that Wilshere was so good at was just getting the ball and being able to turn 180 degrees. That's something Zaid's really good. He's really good at with his back to goal and taking it. And and working the way into out into space. He just couldn't quite get going as much in this game. However, having seen him in previous matches, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. There's something so swashbuckling and so exhilarating about just watching a player dribble away from an opponent. I mean, I don't know about you. When I saw Cristiano Montano do that to Cami Blues, I was swooning. So to get the chance to see that in real life, it's good. But he wasn't his most dominant game, but he did contribute with a really well taken goal to open the scoring.
Because he's one of these players who, as soon as I see he scored, I go, oh good, I get to go and watch him in the highlights scoring a goal, because he doesn't really do tap-in. So that was something I was looking forward to. Of course, with it being Edinburgh City, that also means that we get to talk about your man Michael McIndoe's post-match, which you sent to me on Sunday. And I thought it was really interesting how much he spoke about them being patient, because they knew that Elgin were pressing. He basically said, we are the fittest team in the league, or we believe we're the fittest team in the league. We know our stats. No one's going to top us in terms of that. How evident was that, how fit they are?
Yeah, oh my goodness. There were a couple of players on that pitch who, the amount of running, and I think that running can be quite an intangible thing, because sometimes you can move around the pitch and there's players that you don't really notice that can do some like 10 kilometres over the course of 90 minutes. Jason Jarvis and Dylan Wells and James Stokes especially, non-stop. If that was a Pep Guardiola team that were doing this, you'd say these guys are all in PEDs. I don't think Edinburgh City can afford PEDs, so I'm just going to assume it's just they're very well coached and very, very fit. But there was a moment, I think it was in the second half, there's a ball played back to the goalkeeper, and James Stokes, that there was nothing on. The goalkeeper actually had time to take a touch, look up and try to pick a teammate out from it. But James Stokes, just so enthusiastic running, chased the goalkeeper down and forced him to put it out for a throw-in. I mean, the throw was around the halfway line. It didn't have any material impact in the game. But that degree of running and that degree of enthusiasm that these guys put into it, even after lost causes, even if it's never on, they will keep on doing it. And that's what gives them their drive. On top of the fact that they're all lovely football players. I mean, you saw like Innes Lawson's contribution to the game. I think that was perhaps the best individual performance I've seen from someone this season. He was terrific here. Absolutely terrific. And talked about like Fraser Taylor, his options if St Mirren don't want him next season. I think that Lawson will perhaps be one of the most sought after players in the country. There's a lot of good guys in that Edinburgh team. Mentioned Stokes, Jarvis, Lawson, Quinn Mitchell. Every time I see Quinn Mitchell, he had another really good game here as well. Just described him before, he looks like a central midfielder playing at fullback, because he's so comfortable on the ball and he really adds something to position. Lawson's the one though, however, that I saw in Pine Bovril, somebody compared him to John McGinn. And when you see the number of times, like again, with his back to goal, just backing into someone, be able to bounce off them and turn them, he does that for the goal. I think it's Stokes that plays it into him, and he's able to just roll the defender and just have a good finish into the net. But he's the one, the dribbling, the tenacity, the intelligence on the ball, the decision making, and him, along with so many other players in that team, are better players now than they were 12 months ago. And that is testament to what Michael McIndoe's doing there.
And they're better players now as a result of the coaching that they've got than we ever thought they would be in this division. And there's two players, you touched on one there in Jason Jarvis. Jason Jarvis was at Bonnyrigg for a bit and didn't do an awful lot. Another player who was at Bonnyrigg who has gone on to phenomenal things is Mark Weir. And he's somebody who got touched on post-match by McIndoe. He said he'd challenged Mark Weir to get 16 clean sheets this season. Now, can you imagine if in the big preview show somebody had said, Mark Weir, who was mistake prone, error prone at Bonnyrigg, who was then a kind of backup goalkeeper and not particularly great for a Stirling Albion team who got relegated. He's been tasked to get 16 clean sheets this season for an Edinburgh team with a budget of about 10 grand for the entire season or whatever it was that they were operating off. You would have laughed. That was his 13th clean sheet of the season.
Ridiculous. He made a save in the second half. I think it was 2-0 at that point. I think it's Dylan Gavin came on as a sub, gets a header on it, and it's down and it's low and it's hard. But there's Weir just down to flick a hand in it. And I think that for he might have been like occasionally gaff prone, particularly at Bonnyrigg. I think I remember seeing him a couple of times thinking, "Oh, this guy's a big haddy." I think in terms of reflexes, he might be the best reflexive goalkeeper in League Two. There was a game they played Bonnyrigg earlier in the season. I think Sean and I have cited it in the podcast in the past. I think it was a 2-2 draw. His performances kept them in it. He kept them in against the game I went to when they beat the Spartans 5-0. I think at 2-0 down, the Spartans had a chance right at the end of the half to come back into it. He threw up an arm and the thing hits off his elbow and goes out. And the save that he had here when he dives low to get it, it's you know, you don't know what happens, goes on, but that's a match-winning save, or certainly helped keep the points. You don't know at that point what they're going, but ridiculous to think that he could keep 16 clean sheets a season. But then, who knows how Michael McIndoe's motivating these players? He won't tell us because he said, I've got the quote around in here. The interviewer asked him about how he's going to maintain focus going into these final games. And I quote, I will psychologically manage the players my way, which I'll tell nobody how I do. That's my secret way, my secret Bible.
I'm so fascinated. I'm so intrigued. I want to befriend an Edinburgh City player and I want to know Michael McIndoe's secrets.
You know, I think I'd said it before the Spartans game. Eden Lynch was suspended for it, and when I got into the game, I was talking to him. Eden Lynch, a hero, one of the players that won the league title with Stennisfair last season, and asking him how the season's going on. And when he's talking about it, he's just grinning because he's having such a good time with the manager and this group of players. And that's something to mention is because of the weird layout of Meadowbank. You know, like you can almost look into the changing rooms behind the stands when you're leaving. When I was leaving, I was able to look into the stands, and the players they're listening to Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker and all like jumping about in a circle, just like they're having a great time. So obviously the team spirit's there because that was the match that effectively cements the position within the top four. So whatever McIndoe's doing with that team spirit, absolutely incredible. So yeah, the players speak very highly of him. And so they should as well, because it's an outstanding job. He won't get it. I think he's the manager, the SPFL manager of the year. All relative. I think it'll be. I'm trying to think. John McGlynn will probably get it if Falkirk win the division, and you probably say that's quite right. Back-to-back league titles is amazing. I think pound for pound, what McIndoe's done relative to expectation is astonishing.
I can't think off the top of my head of any manager who's taken a group of players and improved them. And you can point to each individual one. It doesn't matter if it's Jarvis or Weir or whoever we want to mention. And you say, like, this player, compared to where he was a year ago or 18 months ago when McIndoe came in, the difference in him is so seismic. I can't think of any other manager who's had that impact without signing 6, 7, 8 players. You know, so when McGlynn came into Falkirk and he's made good signings, that's part of being a manager. Obviously, McIndoe's made good signings as well, but he's made signings that most of us looked at on paper and went, don't really know much about them, or, couldn't get a game for Bonnyrigg, like maybe playing the East of Scotland or playing in the Lowland League or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't really fancy him. And also guys coming up through their youth system as well. Just phenomenal, like the job he's done moulding those players. Remember Danny Lennon when he spoke about taking players off to an island? Looks like Michael McIndoe's kind of lived that, but without the island. He's just got these players. They're all buying in. They're all in the Michael McIndoe cult now, as are all of us, actually. We're all in the McIndoe cult. We're all buying into it, and you're seeing the difference. Like, the way that they've improved is incredible.
The only criticisms I would give from that performance is that I don't think Uzi C had his best game, which it's unfortunate. But conversely, I would say when I saw him at the Spartans win them 5-0, he was excellent. He was absolutely terrific. It was a game where, and again, McIndoe touched on this in his post-match interview, he had numerous chances to score. He should have scored before the Zaid scored. He was put through in goal, shot straight at the goalkeeper, parried out. He had another one where he was put through at 3-0, put it past the post. And another one as well where he sort of like shanked at it. Tui Daramola came on as well. And I think Daramola is someone who I think he needs a good pre-season behind him to really get up to speed. I think that everyone wants him to do very well for the club. And I think that he's got the talent to do it and the potential to do it. But just when he came on, he just looked like a wee step behind. You look at the way that they play, you know, with the two number 9s and the number 10s, and it's all very fluid. I mean, you can even just, you don't even need to go and watch them. You just watch the highlights and just tell how well the team interplays and how they work together. And it just feels as though that we see to a lesser extent with Daramola, it just looked a wee bit clumsy and it broke down a wee bit. But I think that Daramola will be a bit of an investment for them. I think they had to pay money to sign him from East Kilbride. And if he can, if he can stick in and stays with them for another season, then McIndoe is a manager who, you said there, we can look at players who have gone from here to here and been better. And I think that Daramola can be one of them. But been an amazing season for Edinburgh, and long may it continue as well. I really hope they can go on to have success and get promoted. I think it'll be difficult for them if they say it's like against East Fife or say Stirling Albion and an Athletic. It'll be tricky, but they'll not be scared. They'll not be scared. They can go in there and think they'll be able to beat them. I
think that they'll go up. And do you want to know why I think they'll go up?
Go on.
Because Dumbarton and Edinburgh City have never shared a division.
Look at that. There you go.
There's your Roman. Is there much to be said for Elgin? Are they kind of drifting away at the wrong time?
No, I thought Elgin actually played well. I thought that certainly, I've got to say, I'm a bit of a talisman for Edinburgh City. So I've been to see them 5 times this season, 4 times in the league. I've seen them score 11 goals and concede none. So basically I get to see Edinburgh City on their good days. But I would say that a lot of the previous 3 times, they were by far and away the better side here. But I don't necessarily think that was the case here. I think Elgin made things really difficult for them, particularly in the first half. I thought for about 20, 25 minutes, probably up until Zaid scored, they were the better side. I thought that they won a series of corners that they could have taken advantage of. They missed some really good chances. So some really good chances at 0-0. Me had thought that Ryan Sargent had a good chance to score. He's put through on goal, and Mark Weir came out and blocked it. MacArthur hacked away the rebound. There was a bit where MacArthur whacked a clearance off Lynch, and Weir didn't quite get a handle on it, and he wasn't able to score. A bit where Deshaun Golding put a ball across the face of goal, and that's begging for someone just to go in there and score. And they didn't take advantage of those chances. And then all of a sudden, with the first proper clear-cut chance of the game, sees through a goal, don't deal with the ball properly, and goes to Zaid, and it goes into the back of the net. And I thought that Alan Hale's post-match interview, again, I agreed with a lot of what he said about the game boiling down to moments, and just that acknowledging that the chances that they had and didn't take were what done them. And just an interesting observation that he made about Edinburgh as well. He said when that ball, they will always try to work the ball into the middle, just they don't have much height across the pitch. So maybe they have to play football. That's because they don't have any other way to do it. So if you can pack the middle of the park, then you can stop them. But they failed to do that when the ball was worked back to Zaid, and that's where the goal came from there. So I think he could be pleased with it. However, it's the sort of thing where you're looking over your shoulder a little bit at Stirling Albion, who have proven themselves to be a capable side, or certainly proven themselves at points to be a capable side. They're still a bit of a up and down team, but I still think Elgin will finish top 4, and that's that again. Brilliant season for them, really good season. If you think of since about the 18 months that Alan Hale's been in, that club have gone up the way as well. Perhaps not quite as. If he was a bit more assured of himself in his interview, and maybe if he had a secret Bible, we might find Elgin City a bit more compelling. But no, I think it's a good season for them as well. Just couldn't take their chances when they did, and that's ultimately you pay for them. I know it's a bit cliched, but that's the truth.
Yeah, I hope Elgin make the top 4 just on the basis of I really like the job Alan Hale's done. I really like Elgin as a club. They had such a kind of, I suppose if you look back across 25 years now in the SPFL, all of it spent in the bottom tier. It's about time they went up.
Yeah.
So I don't think they would win the playoffs this season, but if you're in them, stranger things have happened in Elgin winning the playoffs. Much stranger things have happened in this Elgin team winning the playoffs, and it is only 4 games. And ultimately, if you play really well in 2 of those 4 games, you might find that you've done enough to get up and turn in acceptable performances in the other 2. That's enough to get up. So yeah. I would like to see Elgin in the playoffs. I think that'd be good for them, and I'd really, really like to see them go up. Although then I'd miss out on a trip to Borough Briggs next year, unless Broder come back up, in which case Elgin can please go up, because I simply cannot afford to go up there twice. Well,
you know something, if you can either get a choice, you can have Elgin City and you're sharing a division with you, or you can have Edinburgh City sharing a division with you. So it's up to you, Fraser. Take your pick.
I've never been to Meadowbank, although I kind of want to rectify that in the playoffs now. Like I feel like I've read so much, I've heard so much about them. It's the first time in a long time that my own team are not involved in anything at the end of the season. That, you know, if there's a nice wee midweek game, it's a 50-minute train journey down to Edinburgh. Yeah, quite fancy that.
Yeah, that's just unfortunately it's not a very good place to go and watch football. If you do make it, get there nice and early so you can get a seat up the back.
I will do my utmost to do that. I mean, I'm one of these people who turns up at games stupidly early anyway.
Yeah, I'm the
so
same.
I just can't help it.
I like watching the players warm up.
Yeah, I like seeing shooting drills, and I like it when you turn up early and being at a smaller club and you get acknowledged by the players and by the management. I know it sounds like an ego massaging episode. I interviewed Shea Kelly, our new goalkeeper, after the game against Alloa, walked in against Kelty, and he turned around and he was just like, "All right, pal, how's it going?"
Yes.
Like, this is great. He's 10 years younger than me, but his brother plays for Scotland, or played for Scotland once, so this is great. So I'll just pal up with young Shea.
Who's his brother?
Liam Kelly.
Ah, right, fantastic. That's he made his. When did he make his debut? Was it against France?
Yes, it was. Yes, I think that's the only appearance he's made for Scotland, but it's still enough to be a full Scotland international when I was writing up Shea Kelly's story for the paper. So
brilliant. Fair play to Liam Blue Hands Kelly, and fair play to his younger brother as well. Now, Fraser, is there anything else to be said about the big games from the Scottish lower leagues?
No, I don't think there is, actually. Don't think there's one more thing that needs to be said.
No, fantastic. Well, Fraser and I, we are going off to record a Patreon looking at Stennismuir's season so far and their hopes for the remainder of the campaign. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, and let's be honest, you're not listening to the Terrace podcast. If you're not interested about Stennismuir, you need to subscribe to our Patreon. For as little as £2 per month, you can access hours and hours of bonus content about Scottish football. There's a really good podcast on there about league reconstruction. Tony Anderson in it. He's very animated, and Duncan Mackay, he talks with all the deftness of a teenage boy trying to unhook a bra for the first time. But once you get over that, it's really worth listening to. Patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. So I thought you were going to say something there, Fraser, but that's all right. Listen, well, there's plenty of games coming up this weekend. Enjoy your football, but please do so responsibly. Take care. Goodbye.